Okay, picture this. A war has been raging for what feels like forever. Your country is losing badly, the armies have basically given up hope, and the future looks incredibly bleak. And then, a teenage girl from a tiny village shows up, claiming she has a mission from God to save everyone. This is the amazing, true story of Joan of Arc, and it all boils down to one huge question. It seriously sounds like something you'd see in a movie, doesn't it? But it's exactly what happened. So the big question we're going to dig into is this. How on earth did one teenager completely flip the script on a massive 100-year-long war? To really get why Joan was such a game changer, we first have to understand just how desperate things were for France back in the 15th century.
France was in deep, deep trouble. The English, along with their French allies, had taken over huge chunks of the country. The French army had been beaten again and again, and morale was completely rock bottom. It really looked like France was on the verge of disappearing for good.
Now, this was all happening during something called the 100 Years' War. It wasn't actually one single war, but a whole series of nasty conflicts that dragged on for generations. And at the heart of it all was one simple question: who gets to be the King of France?
And right into the middle of all this chaos steps our hero. And she is the last person anyone would have expected.
You see, Joan of Arc wasn't royalty. She wasn't a trained knight. She was just a regular teenage girl, born around 1412 in a little village. Her parents were farmers, and she lived a pretty normal, quiet life. The one thing that really stood out about her was her powerful religious faith.
And this is where her story takes an incredible turn. When she was about 13, Joan said she started hearing voices. She was convinced they were messages from saints, giving her a massive, world-changing mission: kick the English out of France and make sure the true prince, a guy named Charles, gets crowned king.
And that divine mission was about to lead her straight to the single most important strategic spot in the entire war: the city of Orleans.
The English had the city of Orleans under siege. So what's a siege? Well, it's basically when an army camps around a city and cuts it off from the outside world. No food, no supplies, no help can get in. The whole goal is to starve the people inside until they're forced to surrender.
And the English had a very clear plan. They showed up in October of 1428. Now, they couldn't build a wall around the whole city, so instead they built a chain of small forts, which they called bastilles, to block off all the important roads. The plan was to just wait and slowly choke the city into giving up. And for months, it was working.
The people inside Orleans were losing all hope. The English plan was slowly succeeding. And then, everything changed. Joan managed to travel through dangerous enemy territory to get to the prince. At first, you can imagine nobody believed her. I mean, a teenager from a farm saying God sent her? But she was so passionate, so certain, that after weeks of questioning, Charles decided to take a huge gamble. He gave her a small army and sent her to Orleans.
What happened next was just stunning. For more than 6 months, the French had been completely trapped and losing. This timeline shows what happened the moment Joan arrived. In just 4 days, the French army, fired up by this leader they believed was sent from heaven, captured one English fort after another. The speed of it all was just unbelievable.
And her personal courage was just off the charts. During the final, most difficult attack on the main English fort, Joan was actually hit in the shoulder with an arrow. Instead of falling back, she reportedly just pulled it out herself, got the wound bandaged, and ran right back to the front to lead her troops.
The effect this had on the soldiers was electric. By the end of that day, the fort had fallen. And the very next morning, the English army, an army that had been sitting there for months, just packed up their stuff and walked away. The siege was broken.
But breaking the siege, that was only part one of her mission. She still had a very important promise to keep.
Joan knew that for Charles to be seen as the real king by everyone, he needed to be officially crowned in the traditional city for coronations, Reims. The only problem? Reims was located deep inside enemy-controlled land. But with the army's new confidence, they went for it.
And they made it. In July of 1429, inside the huge, beautiful cathedral, Charles VII was finally crowned King of France. And standing right there next to him, holding her famous banner, was the teenage girl who made it all happen. Her mission was complete.
So why are we still talking about her hundreds of years later? Well, her legacy is just as incredible as her victories on the battlefield.
I mean, when you step back and look at what she accomplished in just about a year, it's staggering. She broke a critical siege, she led an army to one victory after another, and she put a king on his rightful throne. She became, and still is, this powerful symbol of courage and belief.
And let's be super clear here. This wasn't just one cool battle. The victory at Orleans was the major turning point. It slammed the brakes on the English invasion and started the momentum that would eventually lead to France winning the entire 100 Years' War.
So, we come all the way back to our first question. How did she do it? Historians will always debate the details, of course, but her story leaves all of us with a much bigger thought. It really makes you ask, what is the true power of a single person, armed with nothing more than unshakable belief, to actually change the world?